Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is April 30th, 2022. How the heck are you? Um, for me, let's see. We'll start with some food, actually. We got some treats from work. They gave us two options, a beef brisket sandwich or a pulled chicken sandwich. The sides were like potato salad, coleslaw, chips. The other option was like Tex-Mex. So we're talking like in this situation like a burrito bowl or a burrito. Um, the options were like veggie, brisket, or chicken, buffalo chicken. And I will tell you from last year's experience, it was a terrible buffalo chicken, like the worst buffalo chicken I've ever had. So I was very leery. I started off with the sandwich, and that was pretty good. Didn't disappoint. Got barbecue sauce on it. Potato salad was the side. Pretty good. So no complaints. I'm actually a potato salad guy. I also would have tried the coleslaw, but I don't know. I felt like it was the safest option. I didn't want to get my heart broke, right? Then I got a bonus ticket from a friend that was lit. So we went and we got the Mexique. Got the brisket burrito. Kinda not worth it, kinda mid, not gonna lie, but we ate it. So overall, that was a food corner. Also, I'm breaking down slowly. My ankles have been busted as hell. But we made it through the week, feeling a little better. And this happens like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year. Kind of like my colds, get those like 3 or 4 times a year. So yeah, been fun. April's been kicking my ass. But yeah, we can get into some news. Hopefully, if my computer works, we'll see. We can start with this op-ed editorial thing. I don't know. The site is TNR. The headline they have here is like the soapbox. But essentially, the title of the article, and this is by Michael A. Cohen. Lloyd Austin raised the stakes in Ukraine in a risky way. I really just wanted to quote from the kind of situation that happened here. But essentially, there was a little secret trip planned and executed by the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. They took like a little, like they landed in Poland. They took like a train car. It was like all blacked out. The windows are all blacked out. And took like a trip to Kyiv. Saw Zelensky. They did like a touch base kind of situation. Talked about the future. Yada yada yada. Left. Came back. Then did like a presser. Which me talking here, I feel like it's weird. Like, once again, you can, like, Boris Johnson did this shit, like, a couple weeks ago. Like, they're fropping around the street talking. And it's like, oh, yeah, I just dropped in, yada, yada. You don't have to do that in this day and age. It's 2022. You can just do the Zoom calls. You can just keep doing that. Like, showing this physical presence is just, like, the weirdest flex, in my opinion, and very risky. But we'll get to the thing that's actually, quote-unquote, risky from this editorial. But I do feel like it's more giving the game away. It's Lloyd Austin's quote. We want to see Russia weaken to the degree that it can't do the kind of things that it has done in invading Ukraine. There is the chairman of Joint Chiefs Staff, Mark Milley. He went on to say, and this said this to CNN, that the U.S. wants a free and independent Ukraine, and that it is going to involve a weakened Russia and a strengthened NATO, which is like really big fighting words. There was also a National Security Council spokesperson that went on to say, we want Ukraine to win. The last one is not too inflammatory. I feel like that's kind of obvious. You wouldn't be supporting them financially in a lot of ways if you didn't. But it's the comments like that that really give the game away. It's also the whole idea of just like NATO allied places like giving tanks, giving support, training, like lethal aid. It's more than just humanitarian aid. It's more than just those things. It's more than just money support. It really is everything but the troops on the ground and the no-fly zones. Like, we're not doing that. But it just gets to the point where you're like, okay, well, when is it going to be the red line for Russia? And they start saying, okay, if you guys are going to supply these places this hard, we're going to start hitting neighboring areas. Also, not to mention, we're once again trying to green light, fast track Finland and other places, potentially saying, oh yeah, you want NATO? You want in? Okay. It kind of, once again, kind of angers, flares up the conflict idea, right? And also for this episode, we're not really going to do too much on the ground in Ukraine. There's not much to really report. Still going on in Mariupol, still popping off there, still the Azov style thing, like the steel works place, still being besieged, but not like fully. But yeah, it just was a weird quote. It was one of those times where it's like, it just feels like you really are kind of just being bold-faced about it. And that's kind of creepy and kind of, but it happens, I guess. Then we have the story from the AP. Let's see. Russia releases U.S. Marine vet in surprise prisoner exchange. So Trevor Reed was released, I believe, on Wednesday. Wednesday. Essentially, just a quick story, because I heard about this a couple weeks ago, and this is my first time hearing about it, and then it just, boom, happens. But Trevor Reed was, he had a girlfriend. It's a long-distance thing. He went to visit her for the summer in 2019. They went out. He got, too drunk. They were going to give him a police escort, so they called the police to give him an escort home, which, to me, as a black man, that's a big red flag. I'm like, whoa, why did you do that? That's crazy. Maybe in other countries and stuff, that's a little bit more casual, what have you. But that's like, no thanks. You're giving me trouble here. I will army crawl, barrel roll my way home. Thanks. But so they're giving him the escort. They're talking to him, and they asked are you in the military, whatever? And I guess he said, yes, I am. And apparently, everything changed, and then next thing you know, he's being put in jail, and it's an assault charge, and they're saying oh, you assaulted us, you grabbed our wrists or something like that. And this has been something he has disputed the whole time he's been held. But they put him on trial, convicted him of assaulting a police officer, being excessively drunk in public, yada yada yada. I think it was 9 years. He's been on hunger strike. He's been fighting, for his innocence and his release. So is his family. They've been making, media pushes. They've been trying to talk to Biden. But I guess there was a trade put in place, an exchange put in place, because he was in a really bad shape. Apparently he had tuberculosis, potentially, had a broken rib. He looked really bad. He was in a bad way. So potentially he could have died. And so that also kind of accelerated things. That being said, even though this whole trade did go down, Konstantin Yaroshenko, who was a Russian pilot, he had been serving 20 years for federal. He was serving 20 years in federal prison for smuggling cocaine into the U.S. I believe they got him in Libya or Liberia, something like that, and he was extradited to the U.S. and put in prison. So he was traded. I think they did they flew both of them to Turkey, did the exchange, and then flew them back to their respective countries. That being said, there's still other Americans who are held in Russia, and we also have Russian prisoners too as well. So it remains to be seen. I know Brittany Griner is a big one. We've covered her on the podcast. I think more. There's going to be hopefully an update in May about that. I believe he's set for a trial on that date or something like that to start. Also Paul Whelan, who is someone that Trevor Reed himself was advocating for. We need to get him out. He's still being held. I believe he has an espionage situation going on there. So, it's really intense shit still. It's still sad that these people are being held up. But good to see that at least someone was able to get home. I definitely, when I heard the Trevor Reed thing, I was like, damn, that fucking sucks. Like, who knows if he's ever going to get out of that. And then next thing you know, boom. Let's see. The next article we have, Europe decries blackmail as Russia cuts gas to Poland, Bulgaria. Got this from Reuters. Essentially, blackmail is kind of a strong word in my opinion. I'm kind of glad that Reuters themselves kind of like make sure that it's like a quotation. I believe like a Bulgarian leader said that. Sorry. But essentially, Gazprom cut Poland and Bulgaria off on Wednesday for refusing to repay in rubles, which is essentially the deal. Like, they are supposed to have an account opened up. You're supposed to put your money in there. It converts it, and then, okay, you're good to go. Or they have to just give them ruble straight up, I guess. But essentially, they're like, no, we're paying in ruble, or we're paying in euros the way that the contract states. We're not divvying from that because that's like a hop skip on the sanctions. We're not powering the ruble. We're not doing it that way. Essentially, Poland and Bulgaria are both kind of like, okay, that's fine, whatever, because their contract was already set to end at the end of this year. Apparently, America has kind of been side-eyeing Europe, saying like, you guys shouldn't even be relying on them in the first place. Like, they've been on this, even I guess like before the invasion. So I mean, it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's not so much blackmail as much as it is just like a countermeasure. It's a tit for tat. Naturally, the bell is kind of tolling for these countries in the situation, and it's like Russia's like, yeah, no, you have to pay the way we're telling you to. And it remains to be seen about Germany if they're going to see, if we're going to see the same thing, because essentially, most likely, it's going to just be like a third party thing where now Germany's just going to give or sell their gas to them. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Also, the U.S. is kind of trying to step up and say, hey, we'll ship you some via like a liquid nitrogen freeze, and they put it on a ship and send it to them. But that takes time. Supply chain wise, is also a lot of money. So we'll see what happens there. I believe 10 EU countries have, complied in terms of like opening up the accounts. So we'll see what happens, if they're going to do it or not. Like I said, I really don't call this blackmail as much as it's just like it's a counter sanction, as well as the next article, which I got from the Insider. Also, I think via Bloomberg, but I couldn't really get it there. They paywall me there. It's kind of annoying. But Russia will pull out of International Space Station over economic sanctions. Let's see. There's a quote from Roscosmos General Director Dmitry Rogozin. No, I butchered that. The decision has already been made, the decision has already been taken already. We're not obliged to talk about it publicly. And he said this on state television. I can say this only. In accordance with our obligations, we'll inform our partners about the end of our work on the ISS with the year's notice. So essentially, it's just them saying like, hey, this is our 1 year, and then we're out of here. But let's see. It is definitely going to leave like a big hole in the roster because this is like a very big U.S. Russia conglomerative effort. Other countries are also involved. I believe the international really does mean international. I just don't know how deep it really goes in terms of other people or other countries that can really contribute to the financial level that the U.S., Russia, maybe China have contributed. I'm not sure here. I'm not an expert on this. But essentially, their pullout's a big deal. I remember a few months ago, I don't know if I think I covered it on the podcast, or I did if it was like maybe a light reference. But essentially, on Russia state media, they were making a joke like, oh, we're going to leave the American here on the station, and he's just going to be on his own. And that was going to be his only ride out. And when they all got back home, the American astronaut was like, yeah, that was really messed up. That was really like rude, uncalled for. Like that really would have been terrible. That would have been a terrible situation. So it was definitely like, okay, tensions are high. These sanctions are not making anything better. So, this kind of made sense, right? That they would be like, okay, we're going to be opting out. Now, granted, it does say in this article at the Insider that they are planning on going through 2030. So, maybe there's going to be other countries that hop in, get more involved. I don't know if we're going to send more people up. I don't know. We'll see. If there's an update, I'll definitely let you know. This is a little bit of old news. I mean, it happened like last Saturday. Everything was pretty much wrapped up. But I wanted to cover it. Emmanuel Macron wins France presidential election. That's a big deal. I mean, the opponent was Marine Le Pen. I think I'm getting her name right there. But essentially, she was very right wing. A lot of her policies really were like pro France, which I think was alluring to people. It was like very populist. But then also some of the things that she was promoting was like an anti-hijab policy. So essentially, like, you couldn't wear your hijab in public. She referred to it as an Islamic uniform, like Islamic terrorist uniform. And I'm like, no, it's just, this is what you wear if you practice this religion. It would be like getting on someone from wearing their Sunday best to church. And like, you can't wear that in public because you're a terrorist. You're going to blow up something. Like, that's wild. But I mean, her losing is like obviously good, but at the same time she lost, I think it was like 41.5%. So she's definitely come back as opposed to how it was like the first time they had met and clashed in for his first term. Also, this is a big win for Macron because I think this is like the first French leader in 20 years to get reelected. Apparently that's pretty rare. So, also apparently Macron's a centrist, which at first I thought was like, okay, that's kind of cool, right? Like, hopefully he's based, but it really is that he's just cool, right? Like, he's like more or less pro business. It really kind of seems like in his actual actions and execution, he kind of really doesn't, he's like tone deaf to the people. He did like a big, like tax on like for ecological reasons, on like diesel. So that really was sounded cool on paper, but then it really affected like people in a rural way who had to travel to the city. Like, it's this unnecessary tax on their gas, and like it started this thing, I think it was called like a Yellow Jacket Rebellion, and a lot of people came out and protested, and things were like really hectic there in that way. And he came back. I think they did some repeals on that or something like to that nature, but it was a bad stain. Also, his focus on the Ukraine situation, going to the long table with Putin, it kind of looked good internationally, but apparently like it wasn't good politically at home. Kind of seemed like he really wasn't focused on the things that were going on, especially with inflation. That's really hitting everyone everywhere. France is no different. But he definitely like made some big statements on the win. He was like, hey, I see you guys, I'm listening. I'm going to do my best to do my duty to work for you guys as well, not just for people who agree with me. Also, it was a really kind of a lackluster turnout. People really didn't show up either. But yeah, so that's a lot of the politics. That's a lot of the Russia-Ukraine updates I got for you. Move on to some page 6 shit here. I have been kind of keeping up a little bit with the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. I got some bumps from the Independent, from the Guardian, and also from the New York Post. Nothing as wild in terms of the reveals. Apparently, though, what is it? From the ALCU, a person had came up and said, hey, we worked with Amber on her story, like in terms of her situation. Like, she talked to us. And then she also had apparently expressed that she was going to donate $3.5 million to them. And that's a big donation. But it came out that she only donated half of that. And also, allegedly, from that half, was 100,000 or so, I think, was from a mysterious donor who was allegedly Elon Musk, who's like a boyfriend, love interest, I guess either during the relationship or post divorce. I'm not sure. But essentially, and then also from Johnny Depp himself, apparently as per an agreement from the divorce settlement. So that was some news that had came up. Also, there was a vaping doorman. He vaped in the middle of his deposition recording, because a lot of these recordings are like via Zoom calls. So he's like, he gets in his car and he's talking, and he also is like throughout the whole like recording and asking or answering the questions. He's like, saying how frustrated he was and the whole thing, how he had to be involved, how even just the actual involvement, he was frustrated. Like they wanted him to come and check on a potential invade, like a B&E, like someone was breaking into their home, and he's like, ma'am, from what you're describing, it sounds like there's just a dog, and it was literally their own dog like clawing at the door, and they thought it was an intruder, and they made him come up and check it out. And he was just like, I didn't want to do it, like, but I had to. Also this week, this is kind of unrelated, I heard a little bit more about how he like sliced part of his finger off. Apparently, like the situation kind of happened in terms of Amber had thrown one bottle, like completely missed, and it was like the vodka he was drinking. And then he went to go get another bottle, and he poured another glass, and then she took that glass and threw it at him. But the angle of it, I guess, hit him right on the hand, and like a shard cut off part of his finger. So that was pretty wild. That's crazy. More people who are like close to them had kind of came up and talked, kind of said their 2 cents. It's also even been like, I guess, friends of Amber who have kind of come up and said like, yeah, like we don't really believe the testimony. In all in all, I haven't been like too super, locked in. Like I said, I hopefully, if you are yourself, you can totally, use some of the sources I have here. Overall, I think they are kind of useful. Oh yeah, there's also some like little weird side stuff, but not really important. Like he's been drawing little doodles and stuff. There was a pile of gummy bears with no table, like no nap, like they were just on the table, no napkin, no plate, just raw gummies on the table. I guess he was just kind of eating them. He had a hankering. Let's see here. I'm kind of just perusing on the New York Post. They do show. Oh, also Elon Musk and who else was it? James Franco were set to appear in the trial. Like they were on the list to appear, but both are not going to be coming. They're not showing up. Elon Musk, we'll talk about him in the next episode. Just more of an update on the Twitter takeover. That'll be something we're covering. But yeah, apparently he was, like I said, a love interest. Also, Franco was a big one. I guess, like, they had a movie together. And apparently, according to Depp, and, like, I don't know if it was confirmed or not, but it's alleged that, like, it was really, like, they got really real for them. Like, they got hot and heavy, if you will, off screen. But yeah, so, a lot to do. Sorry if this episode seems a little bit hurried. I've had some technical difficulties along the way on this one. But yeah, thank you for sticking around. Let's see, patreon.com/Isaiah News. Any amount you want to contribute helps a lot. $5 will get you the little tier bonus in terms of like Discord access, also the shout out. We do those every month. Shout out to Stephanie Renee. You're the best. Thank you. But yeah, all the donations help in terms of like food and mouth, production work, whatever, however, you're helping the effort. Also on gmail.com, I think it's Isaiah1. That's feedback. And we got socials too. So thanks for sticking around. Like I said, we'll definitely have another episode, more updates, more news. But hopefully I'll see you soon for some more good news. Bye-bye. Mwah.